Hey guys, it's Mike at westendmotorsports.com here with another episode of our podcast. And today we are going to be talking about Kuryakyn and what on earth is going on with Kuryakyn. Um, Kuryakyn is a hugely popular brand. I'm sure that almost all of you that are into Harleys and other V twins within the industry are familiar with the brand. They're really well known for their like chrome accessories. They make like a million different parts. I think I checked earlier, and we've got 1,500 unique SKUs on the website, and some of those have options. So there's more parts than that, right? So you're talking about at least 1,500 parts from one manufacturer, and that's probably the single most amount of SKUs that we have. Cobra is probably a pretty close second. They've got a lot of different part numbers between their exhaust and chrome accessories, but Kuryakyn has an absolute ton. And anybody who's ordered Kuryakyn stuff in the last little bit here, I would say within the last 18 months or so, has probably noticed that they're impossible to get. So you're looking online, you can't find them. And we do take back orders. So like we have a gigantic list of people that are waiting for these things, people that order them, they're in line. We don't charge you while we're waiting for a back order, but that's for another video. But anyway, so what's going on with Kuryakyn? Where's their stuff? When's it coming? Are they out of business? Because I hear a lot of these rumors from people on the phone. Well, I heard they're going out of business, and I heard that they're shutting down, and this, that, and the other thing. And so, like, I just wanted to kind of come out and say, and answer a question that's sort of floating around the industry right now. And so, just to give you a sort of real brief background on Kuryakyn. Kuryakyn was owned and created by the guy who actually started Drag Specialties. I think I've got this all right. This is not, there's no citations here, so if I'm not quite right, cut me some slack. But Kuryakyn was created after the guy who started Drag Specialties sold it to what is Parts Unlimited. And so Parts Unlimited and Drag Specialties, they're the same thing now and have been since the early 90s. And then the previous owner, whose name I forget, after selling Drag Specialties, went and started Kuryakyn. And I think the Hypercharger was their first sort of their big part. They came out with these Hypercharger intakes. If you remember, they had the butterflies on them. It's kind of like a little supercharger air intake kind of a thing. Really popular. I've got one on my first bike that I still own. And so, they were really cool. And then they kind of just kept going, and they sort of kept filling in the need where they would make a chrome accessory or a chrome cover for just about every part of your bike. If it was a popular bike, they did really well with the metric bikes in the early 2000s when that wave kicked in. Obviously also really well for the Harleys at the same time, and continued that for basically 30 years. In I think it was late 2000s, maybe 2010s, early 2010s, they were sold to a larger group along with Vance and Hines. It was Kuryakyn, I think maybe Progressive Suspension. There's a whole handful of groups. Mustang Seats, and this big company came in and just bought up all these companies. Now that was about the time that these companies were bought, was a bit of a heyday. That was all post the 0300 year anniversary Harleys, and really a sort of big time resurgence. That was like the chopper craze days. Everybody thought they had a OCC bike, and they were turning their Hondas into choppers and stuff like that, which was awesome. It was a great time to be selling parts, I can tell you that for sure. So anyway, so on the back end of that, this big group came in and bought out an absolute ton of companies. I believe they also bought Tucker Rocky, which was one of the huge distributors, which is going to be part of this conversation. And they successfully sort of ran each one of those companies into the ground in a lot of ways. And I don't want to say into the ground. They weren't all treated the same way. Those companies were still allowed to sort of operate autonomously, right? So they were owned by this big group, but they still had management, and they were still sort of allowed to run their companies, And so if you're a guy who bought Kuryakyn stuff in 2013, you'd never know that it was any different than it was pre them getting, pre-acquisition. because they did a really good job and they kept their people and they stayed in Wisconsin, which is where they were sort of founded and based out of. And so, Kuryakyn did a really good job for a very long time making all kinds of accessories. Then Kuryakyn was split off, and I'm not sure if Tucker Rocky, I think Tucker Rocky retained ownership. This is all by memory, so but you get the gist. Tucker Rocky, I think, retained ownership and kept them autonomous, but Tucker Rocky was doing really bad. I believe they filed for bankruptcy. They owned a bunch of our vendors' money, a bunch of different manufacturers' money, but they still own some valuable brands like Kuryakyn, Mustang. Eventually, they ended up spinning off those companies and sold them off, and so Mustang is now has new ownership that is honestly really dedicated to rebuilding that brand, and that's been within the last 2 years or so here, and they've done an amazing job, complete turnaround. They just once again a great company for us to do business with, and so that's awesome. But we're not talking about Mustang right now. So anyway, so Kuryakyn was still owned by that bigger company, and the guys who ran that bigger company were essentially just what do they call it? I think they call it I don't know, there's some wonderful corporate name for what you do when you destroy a company and destroy the lives of everybody who works for them. Corporate sabotage, maybe. I'm not sure. I don't know the exact term. Don't forget, I barely graduated high school. So, but basically what they did, and anybody could see what they were doing, is they stopped investing in the things that did well. So Kuryakyn was not allowed to operate autonomously anymore. They brought them in-house, and I would say this was probably the fall of 2020. So they brought all their stuff down to Texas, basically let almost everyone from Kuryakyn go. Nobody from Kuryakyn wanted to go down to Texas and work for Tucker because the writing was on the wall. They had a feeling that Tucker was basically just going to squeeze whatever they could out of Kuryakyn and sell it off to the highest bidder with a shell of what it was, and that's ultimately exactly what ended up happening. So for the last probably 3 years, that's what's been going on. So they've been barely getting new product in. They have not invested in R&D, new products. There's been basically zero new products in the last couple of years. They barely stocked the stuff or restocked the stuff that was good selling stuff. Their website was made into a complete joke. Their website was one of the best resources online for fitment information because they covered so many different products and different SKUs. And now if you go on it, it's like a homepage. It's like you could go on there and it's just Kuryakyn, and it's been like that for a couple of years. So you couldn't get fitment information from them. There was no actual person that worked at Kuryakyn. It was just the people that worked for Tucker, which was the larger distributor, that were working Kuryakyn's side of things. And there was nobody to get a hold of there for a couple of years. And then finally that company, Tucker, and its subsidiaries like Kuryakyn, was basically just completely run into the ground and then sold off for parts. Okay. And this other distributor, called Turn 14, which is largely an aftermarket automotive distributor, decided that they were going to buy the owned brands for Tucker, not by Tucker itself, not by that distribution not by that brand, but by the owned brands, which are brands like Kuryakyn, Quad Boss is a brand, Answer if you're into dirt bike stuff, and there's a whole host of other brands that are Kuryakyn's proprietary brands, and Kuryakyn was one of them. And that happened, I think, late summer 2023. So we're going on about 6 months of that process. I've been in this industry for 20 years. I've seen many automotive industries or automotive companies come into this industry and think that they are going to just take what they do in the automotive industry and just apply it to the motorcycle business, and they'll just run over this industry and we won't know what happened. And usually the industry runs over them. Magnaflow exhaust, massive exhaust company. Thought they were breaking into the motorcycle industry. They did all kinds of stuff, made a nice product. We've got some videos of their pipes on our website. A couple years ago, failed miserably, shut down within 2 or 3 years. There's quite a few others, honestly. I mean, I don't really have a list, but like it happens a lot. This is a similar industry to automotive industry, but it is very different. And the thing that drive your purchases here are not the thing that drive your purchases for your vehicle, you know? So there's just some disconnect that people from outside the industry don't quite grasp because they look so similar. But really, when you start getting into the details, they're very different industries. And so the Turn 14 guys who we work with, we are selling their parts and using them for a handful of products. They are definitely figuring things out on the fly. They bought Kuryakyn with the intention of restoring the brand. And so that's kind of the point of this video, is to tell you that Kuryakyn, no, they are not out of business. They are not going out of business. The brand is being restored, essentially, or at least we're told. The intention of the company that now owns it is to restore that brand and do well. It doesn't make business sense to me for them to buy the brand and not restore it. But then again, that's what the last company did, and that made no sense to me either. But somebody got paid a lot of money to do that, and that person has moved on to, surprisingly enough, other companies within the industry. How these guys, I'm not going to mention their name because I don't really feel like having a lawsuit, but there's some names that you see, just shuffle around, and it's, not just our industry, it's everywhere. And you just wonder how these people continue to get jobs. And I guess it's because, somebody needs somebody to do some dirty deeds, and they know they'll do it. And so that's my take on it, honestly. And whether or not that's true, I'm not privy to what goes on behind the scenes, but that's the way it seems from 1,000 feet back. But anyway, so the new company, Turn 14, does intend to restore Kuryakyn's brand value to make the products that sell. I do think that you're probably going to see a major cull in the total overall parts that they make, at least initially. I'm sure that a company that makes as many products as Kuryakyn makes and has that many SKUs has to have a lot of what we'd call dead elephants. It's stuff you can't move, and so older parts, especially because they've got so many different fitments. There's a lot of products for older bikes, which a lot of you out there looking for Kuryakyn stuff want, because they probably are the only company that makes a chrome cover for X year, 2007 Honda Shadow, right? And so that's what you want because that's your bike, and I totally get that. But the number of people buying that product just isn't as big as it once was. We're talking about a nearly 20-year-old bike that they didn't sell a million of. Maybe they sold 20,000 of in a good year. And so the amount of people who've already bought that part is high, and the amount of people left to buy it is quite low. And so I think that you're going to see a really big cutting of SKUs. We've seen some. I'm expecting more. This is not inside information, by the way. I have been trying very hard to work directly with the company. I've offered them my insight. I now have, we now have a rep, which we didn't have. And so I told them the way that I see this working as somebody who's done business successfully with Kuryakyn for 20 years. I'm not JP Cycles. I'm certainly not the biggest company in this industry, but we're one of the larger companies, and certainly one of the larger companies with the longest track record at this point. There are people in charge of JP and Revzilla because they're basically the same company, who have been around for a long time. But I'm not sure that they were on the ground level selling Kuryakyn stuff like I did over that course of time. I don't know that individually there's very many people who have sold more Kuryakyn product than I have. I'm not saying there isn't any. I'm just saying there's not that many, because we've been selling Kuryakyn stuff at volume, and I've been a principal salesperson at Weston Motorsports from 18 to whenever I took over the company, and I'm still involved in sales and stuff. So we've sold a lot of Kuryakyn product. I've seen a lot of Kuryakyn stuff go through our doors. So I am intimate with the people. I had the same sales rep there until they were basically shut down in Wisconsin. Really good ties with them. Always a fantastic relationship until they were, relocated and stuff. So this is my feeling. I think Kuryakyn is one of the best known brands in the industry. And so there is definitely a lot of room for improvement. And I'm hopeful that that's something that's going to happen. I'm hoping that we see Kuryakyn products available again, because when they're available, that's good for us. I currently have 2 bins. We keep all of our back orders, like your paper order. If you order a back order, we keep them in these bins, and it's all done by brand. And they're like bins that hang on a wall. And I've got 3 bins filled with individual orders. Some of those orders might have more than one product on them, that are on order, that we're waiting for them to come back in stock. So I would love to see them get their shit together and get us the products that we have on order. And so I'm hopeful. And I mean, there's a lot of money there to be made, because there's a lot of order just sitting in my bins, just one company. And so, I think if they do what they want, which is to restore the brand, a good way to start is by making the product that's already on order, which would be really nice. But it takes time. They've got to establish, relationships with their suppliers and stuff. So I just wanted to make a quick video on the fact that Kuryakyn is not out of business. And if you're reading a forum or a Facebook post where somebody says, well, they're out of business, well, that's bullshit. They're not out of business. They exist. They're sort of, I guess, retooling is probably the best way to think of what they're doing here. And I'm really hopeful that something breaks open here very soon, because we are actively getting into the riding season. It's really picked up fast. We've had a mild winter and an early spring so far in a lot of places, and that always is huge for the industry as a whole, and sort of sets the tone for the entire year for us. And so I really hope that you see that. So if you're out there and you're interested in Kuryakyn products, I just want you to know that they're not out of business. If you're finding that their stuff is out of stock everywhere, that's the reason why. If you have any questions about specific Kuryakyn stuff, it is not all back ordered. There are some products that are available, but there's just not. If we look at their entire list of SKUs and we check availability, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's pretty low. So most of their stuff, definitely the majority, is not available at the moment, but that can change. Ownership seems to be committed to that, and I'm hopeful that it'll happen. And so I just wanted to kind of clear the air on that. As always, if you guys have any questions, feel free to email us. You can comment below. And if you think I missed anything about Kuryakyn, or you've got any additional questions, don't ask me about specific availability in the comments here, because availability changes. If you're interested in one of their products and you want to know availability, send us an email through the website, and we can tell you before you order. You don't have to order it to find out if it's available or not. So anyway, that's it for this one, guys. We really appreciate it. I hope that you stay tuned, because we got a couple interviews with some people from inside the industry coming up here in short order. And so we want to thank you for your attention. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.